Things Podcast. Hey, Phantomaniacs, welcome to the newest episode of the Needless Things Podcast, where we talk about toys, movies, music, and all manner of pop culture dorkery. I am your host, Dave, and before we get any further, I want to tell you about friends. Not like acquaintances or people you hang out with, but literally the TV show Friends. This is a secret, you guys, that I haven't discussed at all on the social media or anywhere. But I have been making my way through all 10 seasons of Friends because I like that show. I understand it's not for everyone, and some people find it vapid and shallow and to have no value, but I enjoy it. I can turn my brain off and watch it, which is something that I've needed for the past couple of months because there's been so freaking much going on. I can't believe I spent some time sitting at this desk the other day and I didn't have anything I had to plan for. I didn't have like an event to get ready for. I was just sitting here taking pictures of toys, just hanging out. It was nice and yet also kind of depressing. So I need something to do. But I think I can wait a couple of weeks before I make anything concrete happen because I am enjoying my directionlessness right now. And I say directionlessness when I do the podcast every week. I've got the website, I've got the family, I've got the job, I've got this and that. I've got plenty going on, but I need that little something extra. I need to be working. But for the past couple of months, Friends has been my go-to for when I'm going to sleep or when I'm just like not in the mood for a specific movie or TV show or whatever. I just put on Friends and I love it. I think they're great. I think all the actors are great. I think there's a lot of really good writing. I think season 7 is the one that I watched that I felt was actually the best season overall as far as just having tight, solid episodes. So there you go, people. Maybe that lowers your respect for me a little bit, and in all likelihood, I don't care because I like what I like, and there's no shame around these parts. So I am on the 8th episode of the 10th season now, and I know I'm zeroing in on that show, that post-show depression. And you know what I'm talking about. When you finish, usually it's just a season of a show, and you're like, oh, man, I want more of that. But I will have gone through 10 seasons of this show, and, maybe when I'm done, I'll feel like, okay, I'm good. That was enough. Time to find something else. But at the same time, it's for 2, maybe almost 3 months now, they've been there for me, and I'm not going to start it over again, obviously. So there you go. That's what's up there. And I want to mention that yesterday I was on our pal Richard Ewell's Nerdy Laser podcast talking about Days of the Dead Atlanta. I had a fantastic time. My original plan had been to come on this intro and tell you guys about what went down at Days of the Dead Atlanta, but instead I went on Richie's show, and we had a great time talking about it, so you're going to have to go over there and check it out if you want to know how that whole weekend went down. It was amazing, or at least the parts that I can remember were amazing. So go check out, if you Google Nerdy Laser, or if you follow it on Facebook or Instagram. Nerdy Laser is on Instagram, so go over there and you'll find the links to everything you need to know. And that guy puts episodes up fast. I didn't realize, like, we talked, and within a couple of hours he had the episode up on SoundCloud. So it's there. You can get it now. Nerdy Laser, Days of the Dead. If you Google that, I would imagine you will find the episode. We had a lot of fun talking about it. I also want to mention that Toy Fair 2018, New York International Toy Fair, is just a couple of weeks away. We're going to do our regular show about it. And so within the next week or so, we should start seeing those preemptive reveals where the big companies are trying to sort of outdo each other with, air quotes, leaks. I'm excited about Toy Fair. Not as excited as I am about next week's episode. If you looked at your phone screen or the episode title or really anything at all, you know that this is episode 199 of the Needless Things podcast, which means that next week is the 200th episode, which we recorded a few weeks ago. We had a live extravaganza with many, many different talented people. We had interviews, we had music, we had all kinds of fun stuff going on. It was amazing, and I'll have the audio from that as an episode, a regular episode next week. Well, not a regular episode, a spectacular, special, unforgettable episode, but it will be just it's Needless Things 200. That's what it is. It'll be followed by 201, which I'm very excited about. It's a little later than I wanted it to be, but because of the way that this episode in 200 fell, we had to push our commentary for February back a week. So I'm missing the mark I wanted to hit with that, but it's okay. It's going to be okay. You guys will appreciate it when it comes. But the 200th episode of the Needless Things podcast is next week. And we also, thanks to our pal Jason Wilson, he shot the whole thing and put together a really nice edit of the live show. So I will be publishing that somewhere as well. As a matter of fact, now that I've said that, I remember I need to send Jason the credits for that immediately as soon as I'm done recording here. So we'll have that whole thing ready to go. So not only will you have the audio episode as you normally would, but this one we're going to have a very special video episode that will probably go up on the Phantom Troublemaker YouTube channel. Now, if you don't know, the Needless Things podcast is also now available on YouTube, which personally I don't understand, but apparently a lot of people just play YouTube podcasts. Like they'll put it on their PC or whatever desktop at work and just listen to podcasts on YouTube. I guess because that's easier maybe than going to the podcast sites or iTunes or whatever the case may be. I don't know, but I was told that it's a valuable outlet. And I don't know. I know YouTube has changed its algorithms and made everything shitty and difficult. But the point is, it's there. You can listen to it there and probably see it there next week. So there you go. That's what's been going on this week. Friends, Toy Fair in a couple of weeks. Check out the Nerdy Laser podcast. And next week, episode 200. And now, a special word from our pal Rich at the Nerdy Laser podcast.
Hey gang, are you looking for another podcast to listen to? Well, you're in luck. The Nerdy Laser podcast is available on iTunes and SoundCloud for your listening enjoyment. On the Nerdy Laser podcast, we talk about everything from Saved by the Bell to Jean-Claude Van Damme. Nothing is off limits. If we like it, we're going to talk about it. So join myself, Richard Yule, with a variety of guests on the Nerdy Laser podcast, available on SoundCloud and iTunes. Also, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Nerdy Laser. Thanks!
And thank you, Rich. Had a blast being on Nerdy Laser, talking to Rich again. He's been on the Needless Things podcast a number of times, including on our commentary for Ice Pirates, because he happened to be in town, and I wanted to have the guy over. We're going to have him on again. I want to find something horror-oriented, because that guy's got a few podcasts going on. He's got a wrestling podcast, a horror podcast, and a general nerd stuff podcast, which is what Nerdy Laser is. I like talking to him, and he'll be back on the show sooner than later. Okay, now it is time for this week's episode, which was recorded live at Days of the Dead Atlanta. We did a Toy Stories panel there, a special Horror Toys edition, and, you know, as you all know, we just like to have conversations. We're not going to sit there and roll out, you know, dates and specificity and all that kind of stuff, because that's boring, in my opinion. Some people like it. That's cool, but that's not the way I do things. That's not how we roll around these Phantom Zone, Needless Things, Days of the Dead parts. So I sat down with Ryan Cadaver, Nicole Gould, and an audience full of toy maniacs, and we talked about horror toys. We just, wherever the conversation took us, I think you guys are going to dig it a lot. And if you want to know a little behind-the-scenes secret about this particular Toy Stories panel, then you do need to go and listen to that episode of the Nerdy Laser podcast, because only there do I spill certain beans about this panel. All right, you guys, enjoy. All right, well, we'll go ahead and start, whatever. If you're not in a panel 15 minutes early, then you really don't care. I mean, that's yeah, I think so. All right, and they're closing the door, too, so that means it is officially time for us to start. Welcome to the Needless Things Presents Toy Stories Plastic Horrors panel. This is a panel that I've done at several different conventions, and we kind of try and theme it a little bit when we can. So for today, we're going to be talking about the history of fairy toys. Wait, this isn't that convention.
No, it's not fairy toys.
Shit. Yeah. Oh man, I didn't even bring the right stuff. But we do have appropriate props here. No, we're going to be talking about horror toys. And this is, who here is familiar with Needless Things, has heard one of the shows, or knows how we do things at all? Well, I know you're not, sir. We have conversations. We're not going to sit up here and be like, in 1973, Marx Toys released the first ever plastic figure.
Yeah, I know zero.
I can't do. Yeah, I don't. We're not fact people. We're emotional people, which is why when we do the Fairy Toys panel, you guys are gonna want to check it out. So many feelings.
It's gonna be a lot of fun.
No, we're gonna talk about what our first horror toys, how we got into the idea of plastic icons of all of these amazing characters. Going back to the Universal Monsters, and even further back, because we will mention Mezco's Silent Screamers. Any of you guys remember those?
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that. We're just going to kind of jump around the history of toys inspired by horror, and not necessarily just movies. I mean, there are all kinds of things. For me personally, like the 80s produced a lot of non-licensed, they weren't from movies or TV shows or whatever, that were amazing, gross toys. But before we get into all that, I've got to introduce myself and my panelists. I am Dave West. I am the host of the Needless Things podcast, and I love sitting in front of people and running my mouth. To my left is Mr. Ryan Cadaver. What are you doing here?
We're playing at 10 o'clock in the main ballroom, so definitely check that out.
You showed up early. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm prepared. I'm prepared.
You came out way early just for this. I was going to apologize for interrupting your drinking time, but...
No, it's not going to stop.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Well done.
Yeah, I've thought about this already.
And finally, at the other side of the table, Battle Cougar. What's going on with you?
I am recovering from last night, so...
Oh, aren't we all?
Not as charismatic as usual. Last night was a little rough. I also have a brand new podcast, if anybody wants to check it out.
Caught Dead Watching!
Yeah, it's called Caught Dead Watching.
It's really good.
It's where me and Nathan Hamilton, wherever he is, talk about movies that are incredibly bad, but also pretty darn good. So the first episode is out. It's about a movie called Barn of the Blood Llama that I bet no one in here has seen. Nope.
Because you have to pay the director to get a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to mail the director, like, a money order to get it. I'm serious. That's why nobody has it. It's not because you can't find it.
And he sent me just a burned DVD.
Yeah.
Where he had wrote Barn of the
It was
Blood
made
Llama
Windows Movie Maker.
on it. And it's
Was there a dick drawn on it?
There should
Maybe
be.
on the back. There's a lot of scribbles on the back.
Yeah.
I think there's some
and then he sent
phallic
me
stuff.
posters, which was just a whole bunch of photocopied, like, stuff about his movie with that he had like it looked like
Xeroxes.
Yes,
really what it
It
was.
looked like a kidnapping note because he had like taped, like cut stuff out and like taped it and then Xeroxed it and sent it to me. It's very, very strange.
It's obviously the product of a crazy man. Like, when we got that, I was like alarmed. I was like, that guy knows her address.
Yeah.
That's similar to my Things experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More horrifying than the movie will ever be.
Yeah, so check out our podcast where we talk for 63 minutes about how this movie doesn't make any sense.
The podcast is way better than the movie.
So, to kick off the panel officially, one of the reasons I wanted to have you here, Ryan, was so that you could sing the official Toy Story's intro song.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah.
You know
No,
it,
I
right?
got it. Yeah. Toy Stories, give me Toy Stories.
Sing along.
Ba-da-da. Toy Stories, give me Toy Stories. Ba-da-da-da. That's it.
All right.
That's all I got.
Okay, so now we can begin. I do like to give things away at panels. And is everybody familiar with Cavity Colors? They've got a booth over in the...
Yes.
Good, come on. They've got a booth over in the dealer room. Lots of awesome artwork, licensed stuff. They just put out a run of stuff from The Howling. And I've got a pin here that he said I could give away, but I had to give it to the most handsome person in the room. Come on up, sir. No, you're right. No, you're right. Oh, this makes this even better. Young man?
Yes!
Oh, where'd it go?
I'm really curious. What is it? All right, really big Rob Zombie fan.
Tell us what it is.
Enjoy. We're with Brian. He's got it.
You gave him the handshake?
I did. You get... No. I thought you were coming back to get the pen.
Oh.
You'll get a handshake later. It's okay. We'll be nice to everybody at some point. All right. So, my whole life I've loved horror stuff. My grandmother got me into originally Stephen King books. We would stay up and watch in Wilmington, North Carolina. The local station would play like Hammer horror movies or whatever. We'd stay up and watch those when I went to visit her. So I've always had an affinity for horror. And toys are kind of another big thing for me. So horror toys have just always attracted me. I love the idea of an artistic representation of all of that grotesque stuff. And over the years, it's gotten a lot more intense than it was when I was a kid, when Mad Balls were kind of the grossest thing you could find, in stores. But the 80s, as I was saying before, the 80s brought so many interesting and wonderful, you might not immediately think, oh, these are horror toys. But if you look at Mad Balls and My Pet Monster and Monster in My Pocket, all that kind of stuff, it's all, Monster in My Pocket basically had Universal Monsters set in there. Like, it's all that stuff that was inspired by the horror that everybody in here kind of first found. I doubt anybody started with Cannibal Holocaust. What about you? What are your early horror toy memories?
So my dad's super into horror, and my dad was the kind of dad that, would buy me stuff that he kind of wanted to play with too.
Right.
So
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Yeah. So, it was one of those things where I remember waking up one morning for Christmas and normal kids are getting, Transformers and stuff like that. That's cool. But I got this toy called Monster Face. I don't know if anybody remembers this at all except for me.
Nope.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's literally the Mr. Potato Head, but horrific and gross. And it's just this big skull. And I remember waking up Christmas morning, my dad had it all set up, and it had the snot that you could pour through the nose, and all the little, things on it. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then from then on, I was just hooked. So I would always gravitate towards the more grotesque and the gross out toy stuff. It attracted me. I was a kid that was into that stuff.
Yeah.
So any stuff like Mad Balls, Rat Fink, any of that kind of stuff that I was drawn to it immediately.
Man, you saying Rat Fink just reminded me that I can't remember who put it out. Do you guys remember the Rat Fink action figure that came out? It was in Toys R Us and stuff.
Yep.
One of the major companies. Yeah, I've still got one at home on the shelf. It was one of the big companies because in the late 90s, early 2000s,
there were so many small companies grabbing up licenses and just making plastic everything. You had stuff like the Flat World Dracula. Anybody in here remember that? It was like a Mego style Dracula figure. It cost a fortune because the guy that designed it, basically, he just loved the Mego style. He knew that there weren't a lot of toys featuring Bela Lugosi's likeness because at the time it was very complicated to get the state to sign off on anything. Even the first Dracula from Sideshow Toys, I don't think was a Bela Lugosi likeness. I think it was just kind of a generic Dracula. Yeah. And so Flat World was one of the first Bela Lugosi Dracula figures, and it had fabric clothes. Is anybody familiar with Mezco's 112 collective that's going on right now? It was basically the forerunner to that. I mean, granted, it descended from Mego, but it was... I had, at the time, it came out in 97, I want to say, 97, 98, and I'd never seen anything that amazing. Because I grew up with Megos. Those were my first toys back in the day, and I always liked the fabric outfit. I liked the articulation, and not a lot of lines incorporated all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that Flat World Dracula was badass. It's not what I brought today, because if anything happened to that, I would have some serious problems. But through the years, we've seen so much innovation. Nicole, what did you start off with? Like, what was your basic horror toy start?
I actually didn't start collecting horror toys until I was an adult. My parents did not like that I was obsessed with horror. I watched my first horror movie when I was like 5, and then like you started reading Stephen King books when I was like 10 years old, and watching Stephen King movies and stuff like that. My mom did not support that, so like she didn't like the fact that I was weird and was obsessed with horror. So
well, that's the only reason I had any tolerance at all for it was because it was my mom's mom. Because my parents are very straight-laced Southern Baptist. It's a pleasure to meet you. But so the only reason it got by was because Granny was the one that got me into it.
I was banned from watching slasher movies. We grew up at the same time, like in the 80s, and
as opposed to this little child.
I'm 13.
Are you even old enough to be drinking those beers? No.
So like I used to sneak over friends' houses and watch slasher flicks because I was obsessed with slasher flicks. So I was not allowed to have horror toys, and you didn't girls didn't get stuff like that. Like
times were different back then.
Yeah, like
we had to ride our wagon to the market to pick up our wooden carvings
and cut mohawks into their heads and stuff like that. But yeah, they did not encourage my weirdness at all. So when I moved out on my own, the first thing I bought was this pinhead.
Bring it up. Share your story. Yeah. It's story time. Oh, Pinhead's going to talk now.
He lost his box. It's in here somewhere.
Don't open it.
Yeah.
Well, we can duck out this door, and it'll be fine.
But yeah, he does talk. He's motion activated, which is fun when people stay over the house for the first time. He's very dusty because he's very old, and I'm not a good housekeeper. But I'll turn it on and.
That's McFarlane, right? Is that?
I think that one's NECA, isn't it?
Is it NECA?
Okay, here's an ongoing Needless Things debate. Now, who is familiar with the NECA, National Entertainment Collectibles Association, I think it is? Who is familiar with that company? Now, show of hands, who says NECA? And who says NECA?
Me.
Okay, interesting.
I say NECA. Yeah.
All right, well, maybe we've settled it. We're done. We're not talking about this anymore. It's NECA.
It's NECA.
We're done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that and I love that you brought that because that was one of the first. McFarlane had their movie Maniacs. That it's so funny. Who in here has recently seen any of the early movie Maniacs figures, like in person? Okay, so when these things came out, also 97, I think, because 97, 98 were amazing times for horror in toys, because you walk into Walmart and buy a Freddy Krueger figure. It's insane.
Yeah.
But, I loved them then. So I'm like, it's Freddy and Jason and Leatherface, and holy shit, I can't believe I've got all these guys on my shelf, because, a few years earlier, you couldn't even get t-shirts with those guys on them without going to a horror convention or something, or going to some shitty downtown store that charges you a cool tax to walk in and makes you feel very uncomfortable about being there.
I don't know what you're talking
Maybe
about.
that's just me. Maybe that's just me. And then all of a sudden this stuff is widely available, but looking at those movie maniacs now, them fuckers are rough.
Yeah.
The sculpting is not great. Like I checked out because I've got the shelf of the original series up, and they did pretty well with Leatherface, but that Freddy is one of the ugliest toys I own. My gosh, it's unbelievable, and we've come a long way since then. But right around the same time, maybe '99, but NECA got the license to do Hellraiser figures, and that series still holds up today. They don't have a ton of articulation, but they look fantastic. And it blew my mind that, because all we had at that point were those first movie maniacs, and it was kind of like, all right, these, I've got them, yay, very exciting. But then NECA comes in and does this line of Hellraiser figures that are just incredible.
One thing I do kind of miss, though, is I do like the fact that the movie maniacs had the posters.
I hate those. I
Really?
hate them. I hate them.
I love them. I think it's awesome. I like having the poster behind the yeah.
Here's
cool.
it's good for. I love the idea of the poster, but the practicality.
I mean, it's silly.
I moved between when I first started buying those and now. I've moved probably 6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
And those posters just don't travel well. They don't pack well, and they changed the style of them because the original ones had a full frame and the big base, and then they changed it to where it was just like a hook type thing. And
those do not hold up at all,
dude.
Because we have some of those, we have the Wishmaster one, and it's all folded up. We had to throw it away.
And see,
it does not.
That stuff drives
there's
me
like only
crazy.
a base, and it just was like a little, not even cardboard.
I'm the kind of guy that looks.
But I love the idea of having the movie poster.
Well, I love the idea
in bones. That's badass.
But I'm the guy that looks at my Blu-ray shelf, and if the title of the movies is not lined up within a series, not everything, but like within a series. So if you're looking at like Texas Chainsaw, and the first one, the title is on the spine like this, and then the next one's like, come on, get your shit together. For real.
And even we have I think it's the Nightmare on Elm Street one that I have, that came with the poster. But the poster is like offset in the frame.
Yeah, they didn't position them all right either.
But it's like off, so there's like the frame, and then there's just like blank, and then there's the poster.
I'm still going to say I like the idea of it. I would like to see more.
We're voting you down.
The
original ones were really nice pieces, like what they put into it, like sculpting and paint and everything. I mean, imagine if that came out today, it wouldn't have any paint on it. It would be hollow plastic. It would, they wouldn't be as nice.
Yeah.
Although they might be easier to move around.
But I will say that those Movie Masters figures, and a lot of the early McFarlane stuff, like, you take that out of the package, there's a chance that at least, like, an arm's going to snap off.
Oh, my
And that's
gosh.
what sucks.
I have Bruce Campbell.
Army of Darkness.
Yes, my Army of Darkness one. He's armless.
He's armless of darkness.
Yes.
I had to...
I'm sorry, that was bad. I'm sorry. That was bad.
Let me tell you about the worst, the most intense, that's probably too strong a word, super glue experience I had to have was when that Bruce Campbell, the Bruce Campbell, the Ash figure from the Movie Maniacs line. I have one of the big 18-inch ones that they did, signed by Bruce Campbell. And this was in 2001. He did a signing here in town, and he's actually in town this weekend as well at a different thing. But he did a signing in 2001, and I realized it was 9 days after 9/11, which is kind of insane because to me, meeting Bruce Campbell was a bigger deal. But, I have messed up priorities. That's why I'm sitting in front of a bunch of people at a horror convention. I've got the big one. He signed the blade. We're good. The smaller Ash figure fell off the shelf, as they do, because somehow McFarlane could manage to make static action figures with minimal articulation that still don't stand up.
Yeah.
How does that work?
The most they can do is that.
And NECA has a similar problem, though, because NECA, for some reason, will put joints in the ankles, but give them rubber shoes. So my tall man has a piece of fishing line around his neck, pinned to the top of the shelf above, so he stands up and he isn't slowly falling forward. But Ash fell down, his chainsaw blade broke off. And this was long before NECA had picked up the Evil Dead license and started making the most incredible Bruce Campbell figures ever.
The likeness is insane.
It's
so good.
Does anybody have a likeness that's harder to capture than Bruce Campbell for some reason? Like I have...
There's some bad ones.
I think I've got two because even the NECA ones, like some of them just aren't
some
quite
of
on
the Evil
point.
Dead 2 ones are really weird too because the eyes are all wonky.
Well, that's
NECA's
paint
you
process.
Try to capture a chin like that.
You know.
Well, and that's the thing is I think he's one of those people that's so ingrained into our consciousness that we know what he's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it, it's not a matter of like, okay, that's good. It's like, no, that's not it.
Those are red flags immediately.
But they did a I think it's Dark Horse, because Dark Horse Comics does produce toys as well. They did a figure from My Name is Bruce. My name?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
He's got a Hawaiian shirt, and it's great. It looks amazing. It was the first Bruce Campbell I ever had that had a really good likeness. But now, have you guys seen the new ones from Ash vs. the Evil Dead?
Yeah.
That's one of the best likenesses I've seen on any figure ever.
And every head sculpt, like every expression, like he's got like the shocked expression, the angry, like it's all on point.
But my sorry ass little McFarlane one fell over, and it was the only one I had at the time, and the chainsaw blade broke off. And that chainsaw blade is micro thin. There's nothing to it. And I had to make the decision, all right, I have no choice. I'm going to glue my fingers to this fucking toy and hold this blade in place until it sits, because I tried putting a clothespin on it and it was like going sideways and wonky, and it was ridiculous. So I sat there and peeled my fingers off, and there's still skin around the base of the blade where it broke off, which is actually, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. I'm okay with it. But going back to NECA's Hellraiser line, which that was the worst segue ever. Thank you, everyone. My toy that I brought to share a story about.
Nice.
Anybody want to? Let's see here. What do we got? I have a ladies extra large Dirty Con game show shirt. Anybody want one?
I already got that one.
Well, there we go. Oh, I was trying to get...
You spilled a drink. Yeah.
Are you kidding? Well, you can use the shirt to mop it up. Perfect. I can't believe that just happened. I've never hit anything in my life.
That was pretty talented.
Yeah.
All right. So this is an early Build-A-Figure, actually. Toy Biz had already started doing Build-A-Figures with their Marvel Legends line, and NECA decided, hey, that'd be a good idea too, and they did a Build-A-Figure of the box. But this one was, I think it was from the second series, and at the time, I wasn't an internet guy. I was not an early adopter on the internet.
It's a fad.
Yeah.
It's going away.
Yeah. That thing's not going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
But you had to buy 6 different figures to put this thing together. And has anybody got one of these?
We have part of it.
Yeah.
we don't have the whole series.
It is it's just a box. It's 6 pieces, but it's one of the hardest things I've had to assemble in my life. But it's the pillar. If you can't see it from the back, it's the pillar from Hellraiser. And yeah, Hellraiser 3 specifically, which Pinhead is still in it with his little rubbery pins. It's very filthy. There's lots of nudity and all kinds of horrible things that should be going on in any Hellraiser scenario. But I don't know that I have ever put so much effort into finding all of the parts of the thing, because the wave that this was with was not distributed particularly well. At the time, you guys remember like Media Play and Suncoast and, all those great stores that carried everything and carried too much of everything, and that's probably why they went out of business. But I had to travel all over Georgia to get the pieces for this because nobody had a full set. And like I said, it wasn't, it wasn't like it is now where you could just pre-order
Go to Amazon.
everything, and get it. So this thing was a road trip to get all the parts, and it took a lot of time. I want to say, and here's the most frustrating part of it, is the base, I think, was the last piece that I had. So, and it holds it together mostly. But so I had it sitting on the shelf without the base. It looks fine. I could have just said, no, I'm good. You know what? We're fine here. But it drove me nuts every time I looked at it because I'm the Blu-ray spine maniac. I had to get it. So I got this thing, and it was, now I can look back, and I love that I had to hunt stuff down. I love that it used to be harder to put together full sets of things. It's just so much more satisfying. And granted, now I'm old and lazy, and I really like being able to just order a case of things online. But I really enjoyed those days back when, you get paid on Friday, and whatever your next day off was after that, you'd go around and look for the new, the new Masters of the Universe figures or the new Hellraiser figures or whatever. Like it was a day of just driving around hunting for stuff, not knowing if you're going to find something new. Maybe now we know what's coming out a year before it comes out.
Well, I used to get surprised. Like I would go to Toys R Us and be like, I didn't know that was a thing, but this is awesome.
Right, right.
And I would find stuff that I didn't expect and didn't know I wanted, but then I'm like, I want that.
And even within lines, there characters that you didn't know were coming out.
Yeah.
There was a lot more satisfaction, I think, than now, where you can just say, "All right, got it." Open up the case, put them on the shelf, and we're done.
Yeah.
What's next?
It's a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and speaking of scavenger hunts, one of the fun things about that era was going to all of the different little independently owned shops. Comic shops that got in on the toy boom, and they had their comics up front still, but in the back just tons of old toys. And you hit a flea market. If you're in the Duluth area of Georgia at all, there's a mall over there that used to be kind of a flea market type mall, and there were 2 toy stores in that one mall, independently owned. They traded, they bought, they sold. They had stuff, all the way from the 50s to whenever it was, 2000, whenever they shut down. And it was exciting to go in there and be like, what's happening? But the
mystery's gone.
Yeah, no collector-based thing is going to last forever. And 2, the internet is killing everything.
Well, and that's the thing. Like we
hate the internet. Boo!
But it's one of those things where
get off my lawn, internet.
I can look up a line of figures and find out every single Hellraiser figure that's ever been made in 10 minutes, and I can research all of it and be like, this is what I want. I know where it's at. I can find it. But back in the day, you had no idea. A lot of the stuff, I really didn't know. You just kind of found shit out when it came out. So.
What's wrong with us that we can't go on the internet, look, okay, there are all the Hellraiser figures, and just say, cool, those exist, and move on with our lives?
I can, though. I have to be like, well, I need that one. I don't have that one. And then that's the thing. That's how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't
and
deal
you
with it.
can't have one. You have to have all of them.
Well, that's the danger. Okay.
And that's what drives me nuts about that. I have 2 of those.
Well, there's one of the dealers in the...
He's selling them.
I don't know if it's this series, but I noticed...
No, there's a couple from that series.
Yeah.
I saw them. Yeah.
Come on, guys. Get on it.
Yeah. We need the Frank Cotton from that series, too.
Oh, yeah. It's just... It's one of those things where you don't feel complete. You look at the shelf and you see that hole.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really peculiar when I'm gonna start collecting a new line, because I'm like, okay, cool, I'm gonna get all of the Evil Dead stuff, and then I'm like, oh, but we got this really cool Jason figure. Well, now I gotta have all of the ones from that line, and it becomes a problem.
Well, it's the potato chip thing.
Yeah.
You can't look at a series of figures to go back to the Mezco 112 collected
stuff.
Oh,
I know. And
you can't buy just one of those.
Stuff in horror.
Yeah, so you said you bought the Harley, and I was like, no.
And you're like, don't do it. Do not do it, because the minute that you buy that, it's going to go downhill. And you're right, because now I'm looking at all of them. I'm
Well,
like,
and
oh,
they're doing a Michael Myers.
I know.
They're doing a
I
Jason.
know.
Well, they've teased Jason. They haven't released an image yet, or at least they hadn't last time I checked. But they've teased a Jason Voorhees. They're doing Alex from Clockwork Orange.
But what Jason Voorhees?
Well, I want
a Jason X figure that's worth it.
I want a Jason X as well. Like that would be one of my dream horror figures.
Yeah.
Would be Jason X.
I love
Space Jason.
Yeah.
Jason goes to
I don't
space.
have a
Jason goes to space.
I love that design.
Jason in the credits, and that's amazing.
So, like, my parents, they would always buy me, like, the discount, like, Halloween costumes. Like, I'd go to Party City or whatever, and they'd be like, yeah, we'll get the discounted, one. So, like, one year, they had pushed Jason X back a year, but they had the Jason X costume. And I was like, and nobody knew what it was. It was just this weird, like, metallic blob of, like, plastic and rubber. And I'm like, I want to be Jason X. I'm like, that looks awesome. So my parents bought me the discounted Jason X. Nobody knew who I was. But I was like, I'm Jason X! Jason X! That's what, yeah. It didn't matter. Space Jason.
Over the years, what are some of the, as you've become an adult and gotten deeper into this, legally you are. But what are some lines that you've enjoyed? What's some stuff that sort of sucked you in or has surprised you with, like, holy shit, I can't believe they're making that?
Well, I'm pretty obsessed with Jason, obviously. So I have just everything Jason I can get. So I have a stuffed Jason, stuffed animal, stuffed person, I guess, Jason.
You guys need to put a picture of that up on Instagram. We had an event at Stately West Manor called the Jason Olympics recently, where everybody dressed up as Jason, except for our good friend Mr. Bo Brown, who came as a lifeguard in the shortest shorts.
Oh gosh, yes, dangerously short shorts.
Yeah. Put the mouse back in the house, buddy. This is a family event. But we all had to compete in various Jason-themed activities. Was there beer? There wasn't beer, was there?
There was a lot of Jacko Blast.
Oh, Jacko Blast. Lots of Jacko
We all got
Blast.
blasted by Jacko Blast.
Some of us found our Jacko Blast tolerance.
I still don't have one. I would love something. Somebody brought me some Jacko Blast right now. I'd drink it. I thought it was going to happen.
I wish that would.
I know, that would have been badass.
That would have been great.
The Jacko Blast fair.
We really should have planned this better, huh?
That would have been pretty awesome.
But at least
like a pumpkin?
we're not doing the fair.
Jacko Blast.
But this stuff, Jason, is incredible, and you need to Instagram that.
So
I actually almost. He might be in the hotel room. Did I bring him?
Yeah, he is.
He's in our room, so I'll
Everybody come to our room after the panel, and we'll
423.
But actually, I found out something cool about that. A friend of ours was in our room, and he's like, I got that when Jason Goes to Hell came out, and he's like, I got it in Gatlinburg at Ripley's, believe it or not. So that's one of the places that they're selling it. Yeah. So,
weird.
I don't know.
I actually got it at the con.
We are tracking down the history of this figure, but it's amazing. There's not a lot of Jason Goes to Hell merchandise. Because it's not a good movie.
Hey.
I'm sorry.
Bite your evil tongue.
I'm sorry. But I'm just saying, and Jason's not in it a lot.
Man.
Really?
Whatever, he's in the whole thing. You're out of your mind. He's the main character.
You gotta have the hockey mask. Got to.
It's a
Don't be such a slave to convention.
You're right.
They tried to do something different, and
that was awesome. Actually, that was the best part of the movie.
I think that's the best
part. That's the problem because it's how it opens, and then it's just down.
It's more of a this. Be quiet, Grumble Dick. All right.
More Jason Goes to Hell merch.
So.
Anyway, that's why I got that at a con. It was just, and it was sitting on a dude's table. It had no price tag on it. It had nothing to do with any of the other stuff the dude was selling. It was just sort of sitting there, and I was like, oh shit, I have to have that. And it was almost like the guy was not even sure where it came from. It was I think it was like a Little Shop of Horrors thing where it just came down from space, Space Jason, or maybe it came up from hell, and it got onto this guy's table, and he's like,
the glove came up out of the ground with the doll and was like, nope.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to have this. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, give me like $5. And I was like,
That was a steal.
here.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's that weird, like, Jason gives the hell, like, swollen head with the lumps on it, and it's just, like, really odd looking.
Yeah,
And he's
he
got,
has
like, a
a
little
plastic
tiny
head.
machete that's like this. It's
He's
awesome.
got a plastic head.
And it's not the one. It's not the one from Spencer Gifts. That do you guys remember when Spencer Gifts had a line of they had plush bodies and fabric clothes and everything, but these big plastic heads. And the first time you described it to me, I assumed it was that. And they talked. When you squeeze them, they make noises because they did Freddy, Jason, Leatherface. I mean, they did all the hits. But the first time you told me about that, I was like, oh, I'm sure it's one of those. And then you brought it over, and I was like, what is that?
Yeah, I think it's like
never
some
seen
weird,
that.
like I think places like Ripley's, believe it or not, and like little weird tourist traps or something like that stuff with like a little bit
It's
of a
the
heart.
only one that I've ever
Yeah.
seen. And I scour like cons and flea markets and stuff for like anything Jason, and it was just randomly sitting on a table, and the guy was like, I'm not really sure how much I want for that. Give me $5. I was like,
That's the way to do it.
yeah.
Now, as we all know, if you visit a flea market and go to the toy booth there, you are going to find hundreds of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We have, from our panelists anyway, we have one more Toy Story. Tell us about this little guy.
So this one I actually picked up at Joe-Lana, but I had it as a kid, and it's one of those things like we all had toys that we collected as a kid, and then you don't have them anymore, and you're like, I gotta have that. So like I had to have the Donatello Dracula, and I found him at Joe-Lana, and I was so happy. And the guy's like, I don't know, $2. I'm like, awesome. I'm like so ecstatic. But the Universal line of Ninja Turtles, like all the weird Ninja Turtle stuff was my jam.
Yeah.
Like not just like I had like the normal Turtles and I had the van and I had all this stuff. But like anytime they did some weird stuff like the Star Trek ones and the Universal Monsters ones, I was like, I gotta have those. But
So you're the reason they kept doing that stuff.
I love that stuff. I wish they would still do that stuff.
I liked the crossover turtles like that.
Yeah.
But and
Now I didn't like this. Like they did the sports ones, and I was like, eh.
you weren't big on the baseball.
Yeah,
baseball,
the baseball
Raphael.
ones, but
I don't know if it was Raphael.
But I mean, Universal
I'm not that guy.
Monsters. If you cross that with anything,
Yeah.
that's going to be a hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're so iconic, and I mean, look at this guy. He's just awesome. Like everything about this is killer.
As we all know, Donatello is the best turtle.
He is absolutely.
My favorite thing about that design is the fact that he has his elbow pads and his knee pads on top of his Dracula suit.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
How would you wear them?
yeah. I mean, how could you see the knee pad?
Well, we do have a wrestler in the room, Strychnine. If you were going to wrestle in a Dracula suit, not to
That's
be
how you
confused
do
with
it.
Dracula, would you have your pads above or below your clothing? Would you Superman it?
I completely would, because again, as having done monster-style wrestling,
I know.
my gear went on over the gimmick. Because I was, my character was a Frankenstein crossover.
Right. Yeah, okay, so
So yeah.
there we
Settled.
go.
It's
Settled. We're getting so
Donatello
much
knows what
done
he's
today.
doing. Yeah,
Man!
we're settling arguments that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Now, since this is a horror convention and we all enjoy partying and maybe didn't even know that this sort of panel was going to be happening, did anybody bring a toy? Because one of the things we do at the Toy Stories panel is we go to the audience, and sometimes somebody will have brought a favorite toy like we've done and have a story about it. But even if you don't have a toy, is there a specific toy that any of you maybe have a story? Did you bring one? Awesome.
Hey, let's see it.
So it's more for my adult life, and it's not plastic, but it is hard.
Not all toys are plastic. That's fine.
No, my
Some are silicone.
So I found this a few years ago. We were in, I think, Cancun.
Stand up and
We were
Yes.
in Cancun.
Nice.
That's awesome.
whoa!
So it's the Predator, but the story behind it is they take fish bone and they grind it up, and then they make it like a paste and they mold it, and then somebody paints it. And they got it for like $30. And if you ever go to Cancun or Cozumel, they're everywhere.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I saw
what
them in
their-
Cozumel.
I don't know what their obsession with the Predator is, but they're everywhere. And this,
Seriously, gift shops, just Predator everywhere. You're like,
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're like, here's some
It's
dolphins.
crazy.
Is it the
and
dreadlocks?
Predator.
They had-
I don't. Maybe it's very islandy.
they had tall.
Where is Predator's Island Vacation?
I would watch that.
Maybe that's the one they're shooting now.
I would love that. Yeah.
But they had big ones too, but the weird thing about that is they don't have any prices on anything.
Yeah,
they tried to like.
Oh yeah.
I talked to
You're trying to gauge your interest.
Yeah,
like if you walk up and you're like, "How much is this?" They're gonna be like, "I got one."
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what happened with this. I didn't think I'd leave with my life if I didn't buy something, so this was cool enough, so I bought it.
Now, since you stood up and shared, sir, I understand that you have a podcast. Would you like to put it over?
I do. I have a few. Actually.
Well, yeah, you've
You have
got
a
a
really
couple.
good theme song,
So
too.
I have, I have a great theme song. It's the Pro Wrestling Roundtable. I have one that's called the Assignment Horror Podcast, which is, relevant. And another one called Nerdy Laser. So check them out. All
Cool.
my tunes.
Thanks for coming and sharing, man. I appreciate it. Anybody else got a toy story they want to share? Strychnine, what you got?
So my hobby is I like to do figure customs. I've done them started with those style of Ninja Turtles because their torsos would pop apart easy.
Oh, yeah.
And so you could swap arms and make different things, and that of course graduated into my obsession with pro wrestling. And so when Jakks Pacific started with their Ruthless Aggression line in 02, they weren't hard to pop apart. Apparently when Mattel took over, they said, fuck that. They are not easy to take apart. I have my own share of scars on my hands from popping torsos.
Yeah.
But,
like real torsos.
Even in wrestling, I don't think you can do that with a butter knife. But it's one of those funny things. Me and another buddy of mine who did customs as well, we would share like different times when you stabbed yourself in the hand or have big gouges.
It's like the scene in Jaws, but for toy customizers.
Yeah. It's a much whippier war story. War injury story. But yeah,
It's not nearly as badass, but
and
it's
they have like stitches from the X-Acto knife slipped through the head and stabbed the hand.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's toys are one of those things where obviously when we're all young, we're told that's just for kids. But I have a simple theory.
I was told I was going to grow out of it, and I did not.
I have a simple theory.
Look at my house.
It's that it's never too late to have a happy childhood. My first one was fucking terrible, so I'm going to pour it down in my 30s.
There you go.
I think everybody here today probably goes by that rule.
Yeah. And I mean, when it comes to like turtles, I love the old turtle figures. I'm with you with the ones I had as a kid, see it at a flea market.
You gotta have it.
Take my money.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, talking about with Predator, the first horror toy I ever had was a Predator back when the movies were new. I was just fascinated with. I don't think it was articulated very well, but
It's probably the Kenner line.
Yeah,
Was
it was
it?
the Kenner.
Did it look like this?
It was so detailed. I was just like fascinated by it. Its mouth was open and the dreads. It's like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
Because, like I said, I get the paint job.
Well, it's like when a lot of that stuff hit, it was the first we'd ever seen those characters fully realized and detailed. So it was cool. It was like the movie Masters. It's like it's like now, but
I mean, it always gets better.
But when it came out, that's all we had.
Yeah, all toys go through that. Here's the
I was
first
able
one,
to
which
buy a
was hell,
Snake
and then-
Plissken figure. Like, that would change my life. Like, that was the most important part of my life. I was like, dude, I can own Snake Plissken.
Like, remember when wrestling figures were non-articulated hunks of plastic?
Actually, I still really like this.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of the big rubber LJN ones, the ones you can knock a donkey out with.
And Hasbro came along and put a couple springs in them.
Yeah.
And that was the coolest thing you'd ever seen.
So thanks for sharing, man. I appreciate it. You got anything we want to put over while you're here?
Unfortunately, no.
That's cool. You'll be back on it soon
I'm
enough.
going to put you over and you over because the dirty con game show is badass.
Thanks,
It
man.
existed until last night.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
I know you do 1,000,002 different things.
I have a short attention span.
Yeah.
Constantly
And then,
doing
of course,
something.
If you're not going to see the casket creatures in Elsie tonight, I have no clue what you're doing with your life.
Tonight, 10 p.m.?
10 p.m.
10 p.m.
It's
gonna be so good.
And then we're right after them. So I would love for all you guys to be there. And then we can all go to our room and we can look at toys.
Yeah, right. Follow them back up. Room party. Well, anybody else
Down here, I don't know why.
want to share something? Oh, look, our benefactor, the son of celluloid, back in the back there.
SOC! SOC!
I'm not even going to ask you to stand up because I know you can project.
Yeah.
Living ain't easy.
Big given, man. But you were talking earlier about how you went around looking for all the Hellraiser figures and going on the hunt.
Yeah.
I remember around Halloween it was 02 or 03, Burger King, in their kids' meals, had the Simpsons Halloween toy.
Oh, man, yeah.
There were 15 of them.
Yeah.
Each store got 2 of them. And it was just completely random. And I
Yeah.
probably went to 35 Burger Kings trying to find all those. But like, when you finally find that last one and complete the set.
Did they make you like buy food every time?
Some of the stores would just sell me the toys. Some of them they're like, no, you gotta buy food.
You're like,
I
I've had
think-
enough chicken nuggets today, dude. Come on.
I think most of the ones I went to, like, they were actually happy to not have to make you anything. Like, if you walked in and you're like, hey, can I have whichever Simpsons toys you have?
Right.
What do you want with it? Nothing? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have to hand you a cheeseburger? That's
Right.
great.
No one has to do anything else.
Yeah.
It's the hunt for him.
Is that still like?
so
I don't even know. Like
rewarding.
people with kids, is that still a thing? Because like I don't.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. They still I feel like the licenses aren't as cool, but that's because I'm ancient and getting ready to fall apart at any moment.
There
And
you
I
go.
don't understand what the kids like.
It used to be with those toys. You would a movie would come out and you knew 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That was gonna be like the next
Right.
Happy Meal, kids meal to go to Burger King, whatever.
Yeah.
It was always within like a couple. That was always the promotional stunt.
Yeah.
For whatever big Disney movie, whatever was coming out, that was gonna be the kids meal.
Well, now so many movies are coming out, and so I feel
can't keep
like
up.
everything is made for a much broader audience than it used to be. You know, it used to be the kids' movie came out, and that's what the Happy Meal toy was. But now you've got all the Marvel stuff that's general audience, and you got so many things. I think kids are watching. What Hollywood is releasing is generally more palatable.
Yeah.
So it's this weird.
You definitely don't get weird like.
That's a different panel. That's a different panel.
Because Disney owns so much.
What?
They own the
Batman
panel.
Returns burned.
Yeah.
Remember that was a big deal. With the
Oh
I
yeah.
wonder if maybe that was something like maybe we shouldn't be dipping our
Well-
toes so much in movies we don't know. anything.
Well, maybe you shouldn't put out shitty Burger King toys because those toys were awful. I just grumble digged you, buddy. Anybody else got a toy story to share before we wrap it up? What you got?
I was going to say you were talking about like your parents wouldn't allow you to do that stuff, neither would mine. So my big thing was when McDonald's came out with their chicken McNuggets, that you were dressed up like the universe.
Oh, the Halloween chicken McNuggets.
Because that was palatable. They would let me get those. So my mom went and scoured around to find all those so I could have them. I played.
Yes.
Like more than my Barbie dolls or anything else. I played with those McNuggets forever.
Those are the best.
Those are really
Best
awesome.
premiums ever. Yeah, the commercial with the little puppets, those things were adorable.
Yeah.
And I didn't imagine we'd be talking about anything adorable today, but man, those little McNuggets were awesome. Anybody else?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, music's always been my go-to, like for you guys, sport and whatnot. With music, I would find an artist that was unestablished or whatever was getting scouted. With today's society, commercialism behind the pop culture, how do you guys feel with things becoming more culturally acceptable? Commercially,
There's a very fine line. I'm old and I'm more accepting of things than I used to be. When I was younger, I'd get really mad when some niche thing that I loved got recognized by other people.
So now today, like it's easily like you've touched on yourself with.
You bet I have.
As accessible as things are today, do you feel like there's kind of a disconnect between the creation of these ideas and the people who are actually investing their emotions into these things? Because, like you said, it's so easily accessible. They can move on to something else. They don't really.
Yeah, I definitely.
They weren't a part of the upbringing.
Right.
To these iconic figures.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons. I think that's one of the reasons why toys coming up on Kickstarter has become a thing in the way that it has.
Yeah.
Because you get that grassroots experience now. You get the emotional connection, and my money made that happen. Now, granted, I think 9 times out of 10 you never see a toy out of it.
Yeah.
But I do think that's why that's so popular and why that's engaged people so much. Is it's going back to that, the experience of walking into Kmart and finding some weird new little toy line and being like, holy shit, Food Fighters, what?
Dude,
I
remember Food Fighters.
I am on board for Food Fighters, and then it gets more popular, more recognizable, and you're kind of not as interested. This is that same kind of thing, like, some weird Kickstarter. Look, it's mutant cyborg Firefly figures.
Yeah,
I'm down with that.
And I'm guilty of it too. Like, it's one of those things. Like when Pops first hit, and they were like, I was like, whoa, I could buy like a figure of like this character from this obscure thing that I watched.
Because Funko has every license to everything.
Yeah. But now that I see them everywhere, I'm just so sick of seeing Pops.
I'm with you on that.
And I'm
one.
just like, I don't even care. Like, they can release any character. I'm just like, I don't care.
A store recently opened up north of Atlanta, and when I was talking earlier about finding independently run toy stores and how exciting that was in like the late 90s, early 2000s, a store that was very clearly, I drove by it on my way to work, and it was very clearly a toy store. And I was like, wow, I've never heard of this name, I've never heard of this. Did somebody actually open a toy store in 2017? What? And finally made a point of stopping in there one day with the family, and we walk in, and the whole store is Pops. That's literally all. The walls are just lined with Pops. That's not a toy store. And look, I like those. I dig the concept. Every once in a while, there's one that I see, and I'm like, you know what? That aesthetic works really well for that character. Yeah. It's cool. But, like, out of all the things you could do, why would you choose to specialize in the most readily available collectible item on the planet?
Yeah, and you can literally buy Pops anywhere.
Yeah, and if you're patient for less than MSRP generally.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to end on Pops, so we're gonna end on right now. If there was a dream figure, we're gonna end on.
Yeah, let's talk about.
We're going to end on this guy. It's always good to end with the Gill Man.
So this dude I got at either the first or second Days of the Dead. I can't remember.
It was Indy.
Was it?
Yeah. It was that first year me and you went up to Indy.
Oh. Anyways, so I got him at Days of the Dead. But since I got him, and it was just another like random find at one of these booths out here, he has been our adventure buddy. So he's been to Indy several times. He's been on a lot of road trips. He's been to Anderson. When we Andersoned the hotel room, we turned it into a verb.
That was
We rock starred a hotel room, and Creature helped. It was very interesting. We almost threw a microwave oven out a window, but adulting won on that one, and the microwave stayed where it was at. He's been all over. I think, did he come to Europe with us?
Yeah, he's our co-pilot.
So
it's weird that like an inanimate object, like you can have an attachment like that, but it's one of those things. It's like Creature comes with us.
Yeah,
it's
Creature comes to every Days of the Dead. He comes to Dragon Con.
And I feel like everyone has a toy, at least or has had a toy in their life that they're like, that's my buddy.
Yeah, he's like our mascot, especially for road trips. We love him very much. So.
There you go.
The fabulous Beanie Baby Rainbow, become a fabulous Ram. He's our road trip mascot.
Yeah, so you gotta have a buddy that comes with. And Creature is ours. He's been on a lot of trips with me and Ryan, me and Nathan, and the three of us, and all that. We love him very much. So if you guys want
He's seen some horrible things in hotel rooms.
I did learn that blood comes out of his fur pretty easily. I was surprised.
Nice.
He got really bloody in Anderson. He's a little bit stained and stuff, but he
just gives him character.
He washes well.
You know he's yours.
Yeah. He has smoked several cigarettes, and there was that time we made him do heroin.
That was pretty awesome. I tied a little rubber band around it. It was so cute.
He's a badass.
All right, so to wrap it up for real, if there was one character that would be your dream toy, the thing that you would see and be like, I have to have that right now. Not something that exists, something that you want. Like, for instance, I have to have, for Mezco's 112, a Freddy Krueger. I would prefer later Freddy, because the makeup, I prefer later makeup. I like the sweater to be uniform. Once again, Blu-ray spine guy doesn't like Freddy's red sleeves. I need the pattern to be all over.
I didn't even realize that was a thing, but he pointed that out to me on the figure, and you thought it was a mistake, right?
Yeah, when I first got that I think was it the McFarlane one?
Yeah.
When I first got that, I thought they'd just left a paint app off of his sleeves.
Yeah, his sleeves, I don't know if you know this, but in the first movie, solid red, no stripes.
I had never noticed it in watching the movie, because at the time, all we had was shitty quality versions.
In most of the movie, he's in dark.
It doesn't read necessarily.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want a 112 Freddy.
That'd be awesome.
Oh my gosh! Well, the heads they would include, probably different hands, everything in that fabric. If you guys haven't seen a 112 collected figure in person, you've never seen anything like it. They're like, I mean, everybody knows Hot Toys, right? They're like Hot Toys, but 6-inch scale and slightly more affordable.
They're actually not. I don't think they're that bad.
But that's now. I mean, for what they are, once you get your hands on one, you understand. That's why this costs.
I get it. It makes sense.
So that's my dream. So what if there was one like style of toy for a character?
I would also go with the 112 because I love those. I want a 112 Franklin Jella Skeletor.
Oh my gosh. Dude.
That would be badass.
You're reaching for the stars. I feel bad about mine now.
I think that would be awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I would buy, if they did a line of 112 from the Masters of the Universe movie, I'd buy every single one of them.
Yeah. Just have a base that just goes up and down.
Like, even if you don't like that movie, that design for Skeletor is so badass.
Yeah.
I would have.
I would not buy Gwildor.
I would have a 112 Blessy Sue, the llama from Barn of the Fire.
On brand.
I would display that shit with such pride. I'd have a spotlight on it. It would be amazing.
All right. Well, it is time to wrap up, and that means we once again plug everything that we're doing. Don't take that the wrong way. That'll be in the hotel room later.
Yeah.
Nicole, where can we find you online? What are you up to?
I can be found on Instagram, Battle Cougar, Facebook, all that. And again, catch me and Nathan's brand new podcast. First episode dropped last Monday, and the next episode will be out in about a week and a half.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Oh, boy.
We are committing to one a month.
Can't believe that guy's
try
not
to do
here.
2 a month.
It's on iTunes?
Yeah, it's on iTunes, it's on Stitcher, it's on whatever your favorite podcast app is.
It's on all of it. Yeah, just Google it.
Click the Podbean.
It's worth a Google.
Yeah, if it's not on whatever podcast app you use, please hit me up and I will get it on that. But I've gotten it on all the big ones, so check it out.
She's really serious about podcasting. And it's funny because her first episode already has like 20 times more downloads than anything the Cats and Creatures do. We've launched like 4 podcasts and then we're just like,
Every 2 weeks.
I do not have a podcast to push, but I will push. We are playing 10 o'clock right across the hall, 10 o'clock tonight, the Casket Creatures with Elzig. Please be there. And there may be some surprises happening that are in...
Oh, there will definitely be surprises.
Well, there will definitely be surprises.
It's just what the surprises will be.
There may be like a really cool one, or it may be really underwhelming, but you won't know unless you were there.
Bring your friends.
Yeah.
And I am Dave West. You can find me at needlessthingspodcast.com. We post all kinds of stuff, not just about toys. The Needless Things podcast posts every single Friday, and it's on iTunes and everything else. Please come get a business card when we're all done, and we're all done.
Yep.
Thank you for coming out, guys. I appreciate it.
Huge thanks to the son of celluloid, Nathan Hamilton, who is the director of the Blue Track for Days of the Dead. He is the guy that got Needless Things and the Dirty Con Game Show and all the Fanmaniacs on board this weekend and gave us fun to have and let us come out and share the stuff that we do. I had an amazing time. I will absolutely be back there next year doing who knows what, anything where I can have a microphone in front of my fat face. And you guys, this is it. Episode 199 is in the can. Episode 200 is done, barring a catastrophic Armageddon scenario that ends the world, or like an EMP that hits Earth and undoes all of our electronics. 200th episode is done. In the can, baby. It's happening. I don't even know what to say about the fact that next week is the 200th episode. You guys, please do, keep spreading the word. Keep telling people. And now I feel like we've hit a major milestone of respectability to a certain extent. Like, we've done it 200 times now. You've let me into your bodies, into your minds 199 times. And next week will be the 200th. And I appreciate that. Believe me. So keep spreading the word. Go to needlessthingspodcast.com. Click on the big ol' Amazon box and buy your stuff there. And just keep tuning in, you guys. And next week, we've got a very, very special treat for you. If you weren't there live, I'm so excited for you to hear it. I love you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Needless Things podcast. You're the best. You can find the show on iTunes, Stitcher, Downcast, or in the ears of a Trader Vic's employee. Love you. Mean it. Uh-huh.